Be generous in prosperity and thankful in adversity. Be worthy of the trust of thy neighbor, and look upon him with a bright and friendly face. Be a treasure to the poor, an admonisher to the rich, an answerer of the cry of the needy, a preserver of the sanctity of thy pledge. Be fair in thy judgment and guarded in thy speech. Be unjust to no man, and show all meekness to all men. Be as a lamp unto them that walk in darkness, a joy to the sorrowful, a sea for the thirsty, a haven for the distressed, an upholder and defender of the victim of oppression. Let integrity and uprightness distinguish all thine acts. Be a home for the stranger, a balm to the suffering, a tower of strength for the fugitive. Be eyes to the blind, and a guiding light unto the feet of the erring. Be an ornament to the countenance of truth, a crown to the brow of fidelity, a pillar of the temple of righteousness, a breath of life to the body of mankind, an ensign of the hosts of justice, a luminary above the horizon of virtue, a dew to the soil of the human heart, an ark on the ocean of knowledge, a sun in the heaven of bounty, a gem on the diadem of wisdom, a shining light in the firmament of thy generation, a fruit upon the tree of humility. Baha'u'llah.
To be a Baha'i simply means to love all the world, to love humanity and try to serve it, to work for universal peace and universal brotherhood. Abdul Baha.
So today we're really excited to have a spiritual conversation with Rainn Wilson. Rainn Wilson is an Emmy-nominated and SAG Award-winning actor, best known for playing the inimitable Dwight Schrute for 9 seasons on NBC's The Office. His robust and diverse career includes television, movies, unscripted series, animation, and podcasts. In addition, he's also a New York Times bestselling author, having written The Bassoon King, SoulPancake, Chew on Life's Big Questions, and his latest book, Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution. Rainn founded a digital media company and is co-founder of Lide Haiti, an education nonprofit that empowers women and girls through the arts and scholarships in rural Haiti. So with that, I'll hand it off to Mr. Wilson.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks for the beautiful quotes. Nice to see everyone here. I love that you've kept this going. This started as a pandemic project, and you're keeping it going, and people from all over the world show up, and you've got quite a presence on YouTube as well. There I am in all of my weird-looking glory. If you hear lots of weird noises going on, it's not my stomach. It's my very anxious and needy dogs that I'm dog sitting, and they're right here in my office on the floor. So nice to see you all. Thanks for having me, everyone. I thought what I would talk about today is a little bit about the Baha'i faith and the arts. That the most common question that I'm asked is, usually about being on a TV show, most notably The Office. Now, I've been on dozens and dozens of TV shows, but that's the one that I'm most well known for. And the questions usually have to do with is that weird playing a character like Dwight that's not spiritual at all? You talk about spirituality a lot. What's it like being a Baha'i and being on a sitcom? What's it like being a Baha'i and being in Hollywood? What's it like being an actor who's, interested in spiritual ideas? And what is the Baha'i take on, et cetera, et cetera? The questions go on and on and on. So I thought I would address some of them by talking about the deep, rich Baha'i tradition of the arts as worship and the various ways that the arts are used as worship. When I I grew up a member of the Baha'i Faith, and then I left for a very long time. And when I was re-examining the Baha'i Faith, and I wanted nothing more than to be an actor. And I was in New York City. I had studied the theater. I was doing nothing but theater for years and years and years, storytelling. I was doing some comedy. I was doing improv and some stand-up. Um, and I stumbled across a wealth of quotes and information from the Baha'i Faith about the arts and the importance of the arts and how the arts are synonymous with prayer. And this was an extremely important part of me coming back to the Baha'i Faith and really embracing it. So let me just get started, and I'm going to share some quotes. I'm going to talk a little bit about my life stories and some ideas. And if we want to do some questions, we can have some questions at the end if you'd like. So I'm going to share my screen. Forgive me, I'm not very good at the old PowerPoint. One of my favorite quotes. This is a quote from Baha'u'llah as quoting the Imam Ali from the Islamic faith. Dost thou reckon thyself a puny form when within thee the universe is folded? There's not a whole lot to say about this quote. I love how mystical it is. This works in so many different ways. Of course, we know that within ourselves, the universe is literally folded. We are made of stardust. We are made of all of the elements that were there with the original Big Bang. We are literally have the stuff within us of collapsed stars. How could the Imam Ali have known this in the 7th century? At the same time, of course, there is a spiritual and mystical component, which is we all contain within us the divine, the form of God, the beauty, mystery, and majesty of the cosmic force. We contain within us all of the qualities of the divine: patience, kindness, compassion, honesty, to some degree or other. In the hidden words, Baha'u'llah says, "Behold me standing within you." So in so many ways, the universe is folded within us, and yet we often reckon ourselves a puny form. So I referenced it earlier, but in the Baha'i Faith, there are many different quotes about art as being a form of worship. Abdul Baha, the son of the Prophet, founder of the Baha'i Faith, says, "The acquisition of sciences and the perfection of arts are considered acts of worship." And I love that this one conflates sciences and arts together as an act of worship. We often create a false dichotomy between arts and sciences, arts on one side, sciences on the other. People may say arts are for personal expression and science is really for learning about what the universe is and how it's made and how it's worked. Some people might place one over the other, but both have to do with the understanding of reality. The arts having to do with an expression of transcendence, a seeking of the divine, and science having to do with an understanding of the miracles of the material world, the physical world. Science is both a catalog of information and a way of obtaining information. And some might say that the arts work in the same way, but both are expressions of the divine impulse to seek to understand what it is to be alive in this universe. This is a prayer. This is a letter that Abdu'l-Bahá wrote to a believer. I rejoice to hear that thou hast taken pains with thine art, for in this wonderful new age, art is worship. The more thou strivest to perfect it, the closer wilt thou come to God. What bestowal could be greater than this, that one's art should be even as the act of worshiping the Lord? That is to say, when thy fingers grasp the paintbrush, it is as if thou wert at prayer in the temple. It's such a beautiful quote, and there's so much to unpack here. First of all, Abdu'l-Bahá says that in this wonderful new age, art is worship. This is part of the miracles of Baha'u'llah's revelation, that in this glorious age when Baha'u'llah, the most recent of the divine teachers, has come, there's kind of a new set of rules. There's a new set of laws. Spiritual laws are unveiled. And in this one, unlike ever before, art is worship. And the more you strive to perfect it, the closer you will come to God. I don't know exactly what that means or why that is, but I find that sentence to be incredibly beautiful. And of course, with the arts, there's no such thing as perfecting the arts. You strive to perfect your art. A singer can never perfect his song. A dancer can never perfect dance incarnate. But you strive for perfection, you come to God. So one's art should be even as the act of worshiping the Lord. Now, what does this mean? I mean, this works on so many different levels. When I think about myself as an actor predominantly known for being on one sitcom, now I played dozens and dozens of roles before I played Dwight Schrute on The Office, and I played dozens and dozens of roles while playing Dwight Schrute on The Office. I played dozens of roles after playing Dwight Schrute on The Office, but I'll just use that as an example because that's what most people know me from. How is playing Dwight worshiping the Lord? This is something that I've kind of strived to wrap my head around. Well, there's two aspects to being an actor. One is that you seek to emulate to transform yourself into another human being, into another character. And that is what acting is all about. If you are, how successful are you at making people believe that you are this other person and captivating them and telling stories through the lens of becoming another human being? This is what the greatest actors are so good at. This is why we admire Marlon Brando or Robert De Niro, so many great actors in the world. And like I said, you can never really fully achieve that kind of perfection in your art, but you strive for it. And in so doing, you're harnessing the talents and faculties that God has given you. You are seeking to tell a story. And the other aspect is the service aspect. One of the most profound experiences that I had as an actor was finishing The Office and realizing what an impact it had had on people's lives. I had no idea how much the show would mean to people, but I hear from folks all the time about how much being in their family, of being in the office, has meant to them, and how much it's meant for their mental health, how much it's inspired them and uplifted them. And that's not why we were making the TV show, by the way. I wasn't going to go in some altruistic way. I'm going to go make this television show to uplift people and make them laugh and bring them together and reduce their mental health issues. No, I wanted to just make a good TV show. I wanted to get paid. I wanted to pay off my student loans. I wanted to have a job for more than like a couple of weeks, and I did. I had a job for 9 years. So that was my intention. But a side effect of doing The Office was it meant a lot to a lot of people. The show has meant a great deal to a lot of people. Some people watch it and like, oh, that's kind of funny. But some people have seen the show every episode 3 to 5 times, 10 times, 20 times. I've met people who have seen 200 episodes in the 20s or 30s. Sometimes people will watch it every single day. It's not what I would recommend. I would say, hey, maybe you should get a different hobby. But at the same time, I'm really so grateful that our little show about a dysfunctional family in a workplace could have meant so much to people. So there is an act of service in art. When, a Haitian folk painter makes this beautiful, haunting, kind of dark, arresting work based in Haitian voodoo and folk tales and Haitian art techniques, they're creating something beautiful that I have on my desk. And every time I see it, it brings me joy. It uplifts me. I get curious about it. I think about color and form and shape. I think about the glorious country of Haiti. So there's an element of service as well. But that final sentence, when your fingers grasp the paintbrush, it is as if you were a prayer in the temple. This was really a seminal idea for me as I found my way back to the Baha'i faith, how to rectify the fact that I had devoted my life to being an actor, and at the same time, I wanted to be on a spiritual journey at the same time. And those two things did not feel in sync. I'm going to share screen again, excuse me. In the Baha'i cause, arts, sciences, and all crafts are counted as worship. The man who makes a piece of notepaper to the best of his ability, conscientiously concentrating all his forces on perfecting it, is giving praise to God. Briefly, all effort and exertion put forth by man from the fullness of his heart is worship. If it is prompted by the highest motives and the will to do service to humanity, this is worship, to serve mankind and to minister to the needs of the people. Service is prayer. So we see this as part of the arts, is making the art as service. If you're making a song to soothe people's souls, if you're creating a painting to uplift people's eyes, if you're writing a poem to inspire a heart, this is also worship. But not only that, in the first part of the quote, he talks about crafts as well and craftsmanship. And the young man, is it Bayan, was talking about making his notebooks? Maybe he can share his notebooks. This is funny that he was sharing his notebooks, and I have a quote about, he who makes a piece of notepaper to the best of his ability, conscientiously concentrating all his forces on perfecting it, is giving praise to God. So not only is the arts and sciences, it's also craftsmanship. What is craftsmanship? It can be anything: macrame, pottery. It can be carpentry, stonemason work, all of these things, human activities that have been with us for tens of thousands of years, if done conscientiously and focused on service, are the same as worship. This is a really revolutionary idea. Part of what we've been discussing is art as service. Man can receive no greater gift than this, that he rejoice another's heart. I beg of God that you will be bringers of joy, even as are the angels in heaven. Bringers of joy. I truly believe that there is no greater service that one can do than to bring joy to someone else's heart. This is what Abdu'l-Baha did. If you guys don't know much about Abdu'l-Baha, you get to know Abdu'l-Baha. You'll get to know how much joy he brought to people's hearts. Laughter brings joy to people's hearts. Stories bring joy to people's hearts. Poems, songs, paintings bring joy to people's hearts. Can you imagine a world in which humanity's principal focus was to bring joy to another person's heart? Continuing with that same idea, joy is better than 100,000 medicines for a sick person. If there is a sick person and one wishes to cure him, let one cause joy and happiness in his heart. And of course, scientists and doctors are finding this more and more and more, the studies of the connection between the spirit and the body, uplifting the spirit, causing joy, and then causing healing. If we are true Baha'is, speech is not needed. Our actions will help the world, will spread civilization, will help the progress of science, and cause the arts to develop. Without action, nothing in the material world can be accomplished. Therefore, strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. That sentence is often quoted in the Baha'i Faith, and it's one of my favorite quotes. Strive that your actions day by day may be beautiful prayers. Turn towards God and seek always to do that which is right and noble. Enrich the poor, raise the fallen, comfort the sorrowful, bring healing to the sick, reassure the fearful, rescue the oppressed, and bring hope to the hopeless, shelter to the destitute. So this is, can you see me okay? In a strange way, what Baha'u'llah and Abdu'l-Baha are describing is completely revolutionary. We've always thought of prayer as this one thing, as my hands are here, I'm looking up, and I'm praising the Creator. And that's what prayer is. For thousands and thousands of years, that's how people have viewed prayer. Communal prayer, a prayer you make up, you say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. You say written prayers, but that's what prayer is. Now, if you look through the Baha'i writings very carefully, we see that prayer has been redefined in a revolutionary way. Prayer has been defined as creation of art, perfecting of one's craft, service to others, causing joy to others is prayer. And your actions are prayers, just as much, if not more so, than the words that come out of your mouth. Strive, therefore, day by day that your actions become beautiful prayers. This is really a revolutionary concept. Forgive me, I'm a little lost on my screen sharing. One of the aspects of art that we haven't gotten to so much is that in the creation of art, one is emulating God, the divine impulse, the impulse to create. God is called the fashioner throughout the Baha'i prayers, and even in the Quran, God is referred to as the fashioner. Baha'u'llah says, one of the names of God is the fashioner. He loveth craftsmanship. Therefore, any of his servants who manifesteth this attribute is acceptable in the sight of this wronged one. Craftsmanship is a book among the books of divine sciences and a treasure among the treasures of his heavenly wisdom. This is a knowledge with meaning, for some of the sciences are brought forth by words and come to an end with words. So look at how highly Baha'u'llah regards craftsmanship. And again, craftsmanship can be anything. It can be creating something through science. It can be creating a decorative arts. It can be more practical. It can be the arts, because God is the fashioner. There was nothing. There was not even time and space. And in an instant, in one millionth of a second, there came to be time, space, matter, and energy. And out of that, a billion suns, billions of galaxies, all of those galaxies, solar systems, each one of those solar systems with life, each one of those planets with its own miraculous culmination of total creativity, merging art and science and craftsmanship. This is a reality of what God is, of what the divine impulse is, of what the cosmic force is. God is the fashioner. He loveth craftsmanship. When one has an empty stage and puts on a dance, when one has an empty page and draws a beautiful picture on it, when there is a quiet and empty room and one sings in it, you are, maybe not consciously, you're emulating that transcendent impulse to fashion something where before there was nothing. This is Lady Blomfeld, a kind of famous early Baha'i, quoting Abdul Baha. All art is a gift of the Holy Spirit. When this light shines through the mind of a musician, it manifests itself in beautiful harmonies. Again, shining through the mind of a poet, it is seen in fine poetry and poetic prose. When the light of the Sun of Truth inspires the mind of a painter, he produces marvelous pictures. These gifts are fulfilling their highest purpose when showing forth the praise of God. Now, I don't know exactly what the Holy Spirit is. Depending on your religious faith, it might mean different things. To the majority of Christians, it's 1/3 of what God is: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We certainly have many references to the Holy Spirit in the Baha'i faith. Some kind of connection between the divine and the material world. So here we think about divine inspiration. We think about artistic inspiration. We think about the muse. Is there really any difference between the muse and the Holy Spirit? To the ancient Greek, the muses were actual gods that would inspire people to create songs and drama and pictures. They were literal forces. Those were the muses. And when you speak to a lot of artists, they will say that they don't know where a song came from. They don't know where a painting came from. They don't know where even the idea of a book came from. I was talking to my friend, I don't have a copy of it here, but he was writing this detective mystery, and one of the central characters is this kid that the lead detective didn't know that he had a kid, and he was kind of this annoying 12-year-old boy. And I was like, where did you get that idea for the 12-year-old? He said, because he said he outlines his novels. He said he had an entire outline for his novel, and then he was writing, and then all of a sudden this kid showed up, this 12-year-old kid, and he had no idea where the child came from, and he just knew the kid needed to be in the story, and he just shifted everything, and all of a sudden the story was about this father and son detective. So I'll share the book with you in the chat later on. But I thought that was beautiful, and I've certainly had smaller experiences like that, where as an actor, all of a sudden I find myself doing something in the character. I hadn't planned it. It wasn't conscious. Like the character took the reins and did something. Could that be the muse? Could that be the Holy Spirit? We mentioned this briefly before, but striving for this unattainable perfection. Baha'u'llah says, God grant that thou wilt exert thine utmost to acquire perfections, as well as proficiency in a craft. The one true God, exalted be he, loveth to witness handiworks of high craftsmanship produced by his loved ones. So this is a very special thing, that this is what a prophet of God, a messenger of God, Baha'is call the manifestations of God, whether it's the Son of God, whether it's the friend of God, whether it's the awakened one or the enlightened one. These luminaries, these intermediaries between God and the Holy Spirit and humanity, they get to tell us what God likes and appreciates. And I really appreciate that Baha'u'llah gets to say, hey, by the way, folks, the one true God, he loves craftsmanship, and he loves it when you try and acquire perfections. He really digs that. So keep up with that. Keep doing that. It's one of the great bounties of being able to have so much writing from Baha'u'llah, the most recent manifestation of God on planet Earth. Blessed art thou, for what thy skill hath produced hath reached the presence of thy Lord. Blessed art thou, for what thy skill hath produced hath reached the presence of thy Lord. Please God, every one of his friends may be enabled to acquire one of the crafts. Just love that. And he's not saying, this is not for professionals. This isn't like, oh, you have to be a professional potter. This is for everyone. The word amateur means for the love of. And that is more in the spirit than a professional who's seeking to make money from their craft. Someone who's perfecting it for the love of it, for the service of it. Baha'u'llah says the purpose of learning should be the promotion of the welfare of the people, and this can be achieved through crafts. It hath been revealed and is now repeated that the true worth of artists and craftsmen should be appreciated, for they advance the affairs of mankind. True learning is that which is conducive to the well-being of the world, not to pride and self-conceit. And this goes to this idea that is throughout the Baha'i faith, which is this metaphor of leaven. Now, for those of you who don't know what leaven is, I don't even really kind of understand it. I'm not a baker. But apparently, if you just have flour and water and you try and make a loaf of bread, it's going to end up like a brick. But if you add an impurity, a leaven, a yeast, it ferments and rises and creates kind of the doughy goodness of bread that we all know and love. But it's a very small ingredient. It's just one 1/1000th of the mass of a loaf of bread is the leaven. Here's a definition: to raise something such as bread with a leaven, to mingle or permeate with some modifying, alleviating, or vivifying element, to lighten a substance such as yeast used to produce fermentation in dough. And Shoghi Effendi, who's the grandson of Abdul Baha and was the leader of the Baha'i faith for many decades in the 20th century, says, "The Baha'is are the leaven of God, which must leaven the lump of their nation. The people of the world are teeming millions, the Baha'is only a handful." And it's true, we're only a handful. There might be 5 or 6 million Baha'is in a world of 6 or 7 billion people. The people of the world are teeming millions, the Baha'is only a handful, and yet they are the precious leaven that must leaven the lump. So for those Baha'is on the Zoom call, don't despair at the fewness of our numbers. You can be the leaven. And it doesn't mean you have to be the leaven on a national scale. It can just be in your cul-de-sac, in your community, at your school, at your church, in your principality, in your county. Whatever it is that you're doing, you're providing upliftment and leaven. So that's excuse me. That's all the slides I have and the quotes I have. But just speaking on a more personal basis, these ideas that we've touched on, art as transcendence of emulating the fashioner, art as service to others, bringing joy to others' hearts, the pursuit of craftsmanship, the pursuit of perfection, that the bringing of joy that and creativity and perfection are as prayer, are the same as prayer. These ideas I found so personally moving and inspiring. They have really guided my life. And I feel that I no longer have a bifurcation and a false dichotomy between, oh, you're an entertainer and you're an actor and a comedian on one side, and you're a Baha'i and a spiritual being on the other. They're one and the same. And I hope that this allows you to think about whatever it is that you do. You're a school teacher or a bus driver or electrical engineer. Whatever it is, you're pursuing a craft, you're pursuing service, you are a leaven to your community, you're uplifting, you're uniting, you're binding, you're inspiring, you're enlightening, literally, as a leaven, with whatever art or craft or science or service work that you pursue, that these are spiritual acts. Your occupation is the same as prayer. Occupation is synonymous with prayer. Craftsmanship and seeking of perfection. These are beautiful ways of expressing the divine. There's not a difference between, oh, here's my job over here and here's my worship over here. This has been for many thousands of years the idea that you have your work here, you have your family here, you have your hobbies here, your friends are over here, and then here's your worship, and you go to service on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday, and then that's your worship, and then you say your prayers or you say grace, and that's when you're spiritual. So this is a complete reconception of what it is to be spiritual, that one's art, one's science, one's craft, one's service is the same as prayer. And it's not different. It's completely united, so that as you move through the day, you strive that your actions day by day might be beautiful prayers. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for having me, everyone. People of Virginia, people of the world, thanks for stopping by. If we want to have some questions, would love to have some questions. Maybe I could humbly suggest that we limit the monologues. I got to monologue. I got paid handsomely to come in here on the Zoom and monologue to you for the last half an hour, 40 minutes or something like that. But we want to avoid future monologues. We want to hear from you. We certainly want to hear from you. Hear your opinions, hear your questions, hear your thoughts, but please be respectful and courteous and limit your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson, for your talk. And thanks for talking about crafts. I never thought about it that way, how me sewing up 2 pieces of leather could be like worshiping.
Bayan, show us your notebooks, please.
Okay.
I'm not kidding. Grab a note, go. All right, he'll be back. Before we started, he was showing these handcrafted leather bound notebooks that he makes with beautiful paper, and they've got quotes inside of them. Let me see. Let's see.
I'm currently sewing these 2 pieces of leather together
Oh, nice.
for the cover. And then I sewed this book together. I printed and sewed the pages. And there are pictures.
Oh, beautiful. Now, have you made a bunch of this? How long have you been doing this?
Just for like a month now.
Oh,
Yeah, I finished one, and this is my second one.
that's great. Well, you're just at the very beginning of perfecting your craft, but bookmaking, bookbinding, journal making is gorgeous. That's amazing. So
Yeah, I thought
let
about
me know
it in a
when
different way.
let me know when they're for sale. I'll put them on my Etsy store. Thanks so much.
For sure.
But do we have any questions or thoughts?
Yes, if anyone has any questions, you can type it into the chat, and I'll read it out for you. We have one question that asks, as an artist, how has the Baha'i Faith impacted your job?
Well, one of the, I think I addressed that in the talk, but I will say that another aspect is because the Baha'i Faith puts so much focus on making the world a better place and focusing one's efforts towards the progress of humanity and service to humanity, it allows me to think about my career on a larger level. Whether it's just entertainment, which is wonderful and vital and important, but also how do I use my platform as an actor to make a world a better place? So a lot of you know I wrote this book, Soul Boom, Why We Need a Spiritual Revolution, and I have currently a Soul Boom podcast, which is all about what so many Baha'is are trying to do, to have deep, impactful, meaningful spiritual conversations. And I get to do it because I have a larger platform, and I get to do it to tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, which is such an incredible bounty. I get to have conversations like that with notable artists and writers and thinkers. And so this idea of art as service and craft as service, bringing joy to people's hearts, has really helped me tremendously and focused my work.
Thank you. Another question asks, your journey is remarkable, ever the seeker. Would you share how you combat the forces of materialism and the status that the public wishes to place upon you?
Yeah. So that's a tough one. You know, the world is really upside down right now. From a sociological standpoint, what folks are most concerned with is material success, monetary success, and status. And nowhere more so than Hollywood, where it's all about status. It's all about, the financial success, everything. Even now, when you read about movies, you read about their box office. You don't read about if the movie was any good or not. You read about if the box office was big or not. So it's a difficult world to navigate, and I have an ego. We all have an ego. I've got an ego, and sometimes I feel obsolete, and sometimes I feel competitive, and sometimes I feel envious. And but guess what? I know that I'm on a spiritual journey, and I'm seeking to become more wise and kind and selfless and humble. And I get to work on that in lots of different ways, in my prayer and meditation, in my therapy, in my journaling, and in my work itself. I get to challenge myself in this way and attempt to visualize what a world would be like if materialist goals were not the highest goal. So it's an interesting challenge. I don't know if I answered that question very well, but
No, thank you. Yeah, materialism is something we all have to combat on a daily basis. Another question is asking, how could artists balance the desire for personal expression with the Baha'i teaching on humility and service to humanity?
Yeah. So, it's a difficult one. I think, how do you, could you have a Baha'i stand-up comic, or would someone's idea of humility negate someone standing up at a microphone and talking about themselves and their life? I think the world is a richer, better place for having stand-up comics tell stories and reflect a mirror up to nature. I think we're a better place having, Chris Rock in the world to make us laugh and show us how absurd contemporary culture is. And so sometimes the greatest service is to harness our own stories, our life, our voice, and to let that voice shine out and ring out. If your purpose is service and inspiration, so I think there's sometimes a false dichotomy in the Baha'i faith about humility means silencing your voice or quieting your voice, and that's not at all what it means. Humility really has to do with the kind of the most ancient spiritual dance, which is between ourselves and our ego, which every faith tradition talks about. As Abdul Baha defined Satan in the Baha'i faith, the insistent self. So what is our battle with the insistent self? But if there should be Baha'i opera singers singing at the top of their lungs, there should be Baha'i authors and spiritual authors speaking out on the strongest opinions on how to change the earth. There should be Baha'i stand-up comics telling the rowdiest of jokes to provoke, cajole, and inspire. And none of those things are in opposition to humility.
Thank you. Another question is asking, are there any specific Baha'i texts or prayers that you find particularly inspiring for artistic projects?
Any specific prayers? Was that it?
Prayers or texts?
Yes, you can go back and look at the slideshow that I just put together, and that will inspire you. Yeah, there's a lot. There's so many. I mean, I say the first prayer for assistance every morning. My God, my adored one, my King, my desire. What tongue can voice my thanks to thee? The prayer that begins in that way, I find that one to be very inspiring.
Thank you. Another question is asking, do you think spirituality is on the rise in the acting community or in the artistic world?
Great question. I don't think it's on the rise, but at the same time, I do think that as the world becomes a more perilous place and as systems degrade and fall apart, people are more and more open to looking at spiritual solutions. So one of the things I talk about a lot on the podcast of Soul Boom is about mental health, because spirituality and mental health are so linked, and we're in this epidemic of mental health, especially among young people. So talking about spirituality, especially as it relates to mental health, depression, anxiety, loneliness, connection, people are very open to. So I find folks in Hollywood and folks everywhere much more open to meditation, to prayer, to communal action, to higher power than they were 10 or 15 years ago because of what's going on in the world.
Thank you. Another question asks, what are your insights or advice to some elderly people who want to get into arts or crafts, but have never had any time or possibilities to get involved in the arts?
I have no idea. I'm not qualified to answer that question. Maybe there's someone else. Is anyone else? I'm almost a senior citizen. I am in the AARP. I have my AARP card, so I get 10% off at Denny's. But I'm not quite sure how senior citizens can get involved in arts. There's so many community centers and senior centers and classes everywhere in every town. So, but I don't know if people have ideas around that they can share.
Another question asks, as you openly present yourself as a Baha'i, how has this influenced the environment where you work? Are other actors interested in knowing more about the faith?
People in the world right now are very open to spiritual ideas, which is wonderful. They're not particularly open to religious ideas. For most people, they see religion as the cause of division, of judgment, and of the world being a worse place. So I wouldn't exactly say that people, especially in the arts and entertainment industries, are open to the Baha'i faith, because they hear about the Baha'i faith and, you know, one of the most the fastest growing religion in the United States is being spiritual but not religious. People are open to spirituality. So that's where the precious point of unity is for Baha'is. People are open to spiritual ideas. They're not necessarily open to an organized religion where you sign a card and you meet and you have a service position on an assembly or a committee, and you gather and pray, you consult, you collaborate. Those things are really hard. It's kind of easy to go sit in a corner with some prayer beads and put on a inspiring meditation and have a little mystical meditation experience. That's easy. It's hard to be in community. It's hard. It's challenging. And some of the hardest work we'll ever do as Baha'is will be by being in community with others. It's also incredibly rewarding at the same time. So people are not necessarily interested in the Baha'i faith. They're interested in a lot of the spiritual ideas from the Baha'i faith. But as systems collapse, and as they are collapsing now, and as more and more people are suffering, I think people will be open to, hey, maybe this whole idea of religion, maybe people coming together in commonality, in service, in altruism, in love, in the seeking of transcendence, they might be more open to the idea of religion. Yes, religion has perpetrated wars and violence and judgment and all this talk of hellfire and damnation. Perhaps that's not been helpful, and those are some of the worst impulses of humanity, but perhaps there might be some truth.
Thank you. Another question asks, could you share an example of how Baha'i artists have historically contributed to the faith and its teachings through their work?
So there's many wonderful Baha'i artists. In fact, let me show you something. My father was a painter, and I'm also an art collector. And I recently bought a painting by a long dead Baha'i painter named Mark Tobey. He's very famous. His stuff hangs in the Museum of Modern Art and in the Louvre and all the top institutions in the world. This is an original Mark Tobey. He actually painted that. It's not a lithograph. It's not a print. It's very hard to see on the screen. Maybe I'll spotlight. Very hard to see the incredibly rich detail in there and brushwork. To me, it's like the universe exploding. Incredible color and design and intricacy. But I think the question is a little bit misguided, because the arts aren't meant to promote the Baha'i Faith or teach the Baha'i Faith. The arts are meant to uplift and inspire. No one wants a Sunday school lesson from their art. Dizzy Gillespie was one of the great jazz artists of all time. He was a Baha'i. Mark Toby right here. There's so many other incredible artists that have, and Baha'is seek to uplift, inspire, unite, perhaps even tackle social justice issues in their work, but not specifically to underline the Baha'i faith through their art. Perhaps you had some interaction with the amazing singer-songwriter Luke Slott. He's one of my favorite artists, and he's a Baha'i singer-songwriter. A lot of his music is putting the Baha'i writings to music, and that certainly puts the Baha'i faith forward.
Thank you. Another question asks, in what ways can non-artists appreciate and support the role of arts and crafts as worship, as described in the writings you shared?
Everyone is an artist. There's no such thing as a non-artist. That if you're a gardener, you're an artist. If you clean the house, you're an artist. If you take care of children, you're an artist. Everyone is an artist.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. I haven't been on a Zoom for a while. I just want to give it up to the Parhamis. Let's give them some love and support for doing this week after week. Bahá'í Faith Modern Perspectives. Woo woo! Love the service that you guys do, bringing people together and wanting to have interesting and uplifting conversations, inspired by the Baha'i Faith. Thank you so much, Armin and family, for what you do. I'm really super, super grateful. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your talk. And thank you to everyone who asked these follow-up questions.
Yeah, thank you. So next week, our speaker will be Mr. Lujan Jubin Mateen, and his topic will be the impact of Jesus of Nazareth on the world civilization, a Baha'i perspective. So these talks, again, are every Saturday at noon Eastern time. And I put the link to our YouTube channel and our mailing list in the chat if you're not in it already. We will see you all next week. Thank you for joining again. And please subscribe if you're not already. And we'll see you next week. Bye.